Welcome to Everfree Network's Everfree Radio presents our My Little Pony episode reviews. I'm your host, Brushin Bones.
I'm Cowboy Dave.
And I'm Ramble.
And today we bring you Season 3, Episode 5, which has been touted and promoted by the Hub non-stop over the past few days, Magic Duel. Now, this episode has, like I said, been promoted non-stop by the Hub as the return of a certain special pony that the fandom all knows and all loves. So we'll go ahead and leave that reveal for later on in our review. But we open with a mysterious pony purchasing a special item from a back alley curiosity shop in an undisclosed point, village, town, city, somewhere in Equestria. And it's owned by a man dressed in, a stallion dressed in Chinese garb with a long braid and eyewear. He kind of gives me the look of the Earth King from Avatar: The Last Airbender. But the special item that the pony is purchasing is known as the Alicorn Amulet. So there you go, everybody. First reveal of this episode is that Alicorn is now the canon term for the winged unicorns. Also, I should bring up my co-conspirator over in Everfree Network, good old Moonlight, wanted me to make sure to mention that Alicorn has an alternative definition from the typically mentioned unicorn's horn. The alternative definition being of French background with ale, meaning wing, and licorne, meaning unicorn. Literally, winged unicorn. So, there you go. Alicorn can indeed mean winged unicorn. You can go ahead and eat your heart out, Nash, because it's been canonized despite everything you hoped against.
Dun dun dun. I also find it interesting that the power of an alicorn, well, at least a very powerful unicorn at that, could be condensed into a amulet like that.
I'm surprised it could be bought so cheap.
No kidding.
Yeah, she buys it. She buys it with a bag full of bits. And if we're going to get technical, from what little we have seen of the use of bits as money in the series, this whole setup is seems like she's getting it for only a couple of $100. So if the curiosity shop owner honestly thought that it was powerful, he either did not care and was really hard up for cash, or the alternative being he thought it was a fake and he thought that basically he was cheating Trixie, as we find out the pony is, out of several $100s.
He plays it up a little bit, doesn't he? Like, oh, this one of the great, one of the powerful magical amulets, I think.
He says one of the most powerful of magical artifacts, I believe, is the terminology he uses. You know, I couldn't help but think that this would have been great if they had given the pony like a Fu Manchu or like that stereotypical sort of like Chinese sage beard and had him voiced by James Hong, especially since they actually have a reference in this curiosity shop to Dexter's Lab, where James Hong voiced the owner of a curiosity shop in an episode of Dexter's Lab. The curiosity shop carries an item which is a simple box with a button and a light on it, which just so happens, if you've ever seen the cartoon Dexter's Laboratory, the very first invention that Dexter ever created was a simple box with a button and a light on it, where you push the button and it turns on the light.
That's where all good ideas start. A box and a light.
Well, just this entire scene, I really love the way that, you know, the episode goes from the get-go. It's not kind of the sun, you know, flowers, birds singing, and it pans down to the town. And, you know, the ponies they're doing something and they start an adventure. It really starts you off almost in the middle of it, even though it's not saying much. And with the weather, you've got the storm and the rain and kind of running through the streets, and it's night and mysterious, and it does such a good job of establishing this tone for the rest of the episode. And you don't need a lot of exposition or anything like that. It's It's kind of unique, I think, as far as a lot of the episodes have gone.
Or I liked how then they had Trixie in the shop when she was looking. They had a nice shot of the amulet, and you see her shadow loom over it, and you see her smile. I got goosebumps from that.
Which means that her smile must be luminescent if you can, and giving off its own light. If you can see the smile forming on her shadow. That kind of made me chuckle, because it's like, apparently her smile is so bright it creates a luminescent mark on her shadow, which also casts the reflection of her smile. So we get the mysterious pony, quote unquote, smiling at the amulet, and we cut to theme. Cut back, and Twilight is practicing a magical display for an upcoming delegation with Princess Celestia and representatives from, quote unquote, Saddle Arabia. The pun almost physically wounded me.
The pun. So we have Manhattan, Philadelphia,
Las Pegasus.
And now we've got Saddle Arabia. The puns.
Well, and even Cloudsdale is a pun in and of itself. You know, Clouds and Clydesdale.
Mm-hmm. Ugh, the puns.
I'm just waiting for the Stalliongrad episode.
If they actually go with Stalliongrad, I will be seriously surprised. So Twilight's practicing the magical display for the upcoming delegation, and the display is apparently hovering these wild forest animals, the cute little critters, up into the air for what essentially looks like it amounts to synchronized air swimming.
Synchronized pet acrobatics.
Those grinning raccoons were so creepy. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but... They grin, and it is just the creepiest thing.
I love how Fluttershy threatens Twilight about her pets.
Well, she kind of starts to threaten Twilight, but then she kind of reverts back to being timid, scared Fluttershy for the rest of the scene.
And she can't even bear to look.
You kind of have to wonder, though, if something did happen to them, just what would Fluttershy do?
I'd be horrified to think. Stairmaster. Ooh.
Okay, so the mysterious cloaked pony shows up and challenges Twilight to a duel, as it happens to be Trixie, who spouts off a little bit of exposition about the one other episode that she appeared in and what happened to her after that episode, with her being the laughingstock of every town that she visited. Now, I do have a question here. It could be easily explained as something that happened between episodes, but how did Trixie learn Twilight Sparkle's name? Because she never actually was introduced to Twilight in Trixie's episode. And in all honesty, the whole Twilight making a fool of her thing was kind of situational.
I think she brought it upon herself, really, just by boasting, simply.
Trixie brought it on herself?
Yeah, Trixie brought the... Well, and it's even... I think it's exaggerated, I think it's exaggerated in her mind, the ridicule that she was receiving.
I hadn't really considered that. I was taking what Trixie said at face value, which arguably is something one shouldn't do if we learned from Ghostbusters. But unless the entire story is a lie, the rock farm, everything else like that, it sounds like it did have quite the impact on her life.
Well, she does show off using her magic. She shows off the little image of what she had to put up with in the rock farm. The rock farm is Pinkie Pie's family's rock farm, and Pinkie Pie makes a good show of saying, "You should have been happy that a rock farm would have even taken you." So we kind of get a little bit of that almost sort of a country gal-esque vibe from Pinkie Pie as she defends the job of rock farming.
Speaking of Pinkie Pie in this scene as well, when Trixie is torturing the Twilight's friends, well, not necessarily torturing, but making fools out of them, as it were, She actually, they have a scene where Pinkie Pie's mouth is, a little arrow appears, Pinkie Pie's mouth is taken off, a trash can magically appears, and her mouth is put in it. And it is not returned for the entire episode.
Which seems a little almost too meta in my opinion, just because as far as we have been shown so far, there isn't that advanced of technology. Like, they don't have computers yet, as far as we know. So her utilizing a computer-based method of point, click, drag to recycle bin on Pinkie Pie's mouth seems to very, very, very much be solely for the fans' benefit and not for any particular in-universe, continuity.
I completely agree.
It's a fourth wall gag. It is. It's not the first one they've done. I think that some people are like, this is, the outrage at the fact that they're ruining the illusion of the show by having, but it's nothing new.
Well, at this point, it's so the entire setting of My Little Pony is so anachronistic. You can't really pinpoint anything either, because you've got the trains, but you've also got the party cannon, which leads people to wonder whether or not they've got gunpowder. You've got all sorts of various different things popping up here and there, references to various different little setups with music and television and that sort of thing. So you really can't place any specific sort of human timeline on it, because it doesn't actually exist in any sort of chronological setting.
It's more implied, not necessarily said, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I always kind of figured it was meant to be low tech. I kind of got that vibe from the first season when Lauren Faust was in charge, and I think that they've kind of shifted away from that with season 2 and onward. But it doesn't necessarily harm the show. It just makes it a bit. It just makes it a bit more gag happy than focusing on maintaining a clearly defined time stamp.
It makes the show a little more. It's not so rigid. It's a little more.
It's a bit more Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it's a little more Looney Tune, and to me that made it a little more enjoyable. Having it just playing a little looser with the rules. I did appreciate Lauren Faust's approach. I did appreciate what she was able to do with this, but it's nice to see that they've loosened their reins a little bit, and they can get away with gags like that.
But as far as kind of the return of Trixie, that's something that I don't think it was necessarily in this form I was expecting it, but it's something that I've kind of criticized the show before for there not really being repercussions to the character's actions.
No consequences.
Exactly. Generally, by the end of the episode, everything is all said and done. With the Babseed episode, they're friends again, and Applejack isn't. They're not grounded. Nothing happened because, don't worry, everything turned out okay. But that's not realistic. Actions have consequences, and people are saying, Trixie's petty vengeance and all this, and we have to go and take what she's saying, of course, with a grain of salt because it's Trixie. But Trixie was wrong. She was legitimately wronged. The retribution that she suffered for her actions, which she didn't harm anybody. She was boastful and
she actually really wasn't that harmed, because all that actually happened was Twilight's actions in removing the Ursa Minor as a threat to the people of Ponyville. All that proved was that Trixie's boast of having defeated an Ursa Major was in fact a lie. That was not intentional harm done for the purpose of defaming or slandering Trixie's name. That was simply a byproduct of Twilight having to step in and take care of the Ursa Minor when Trixie's attempt failed. So you can't really blame Twilight or any of the other ponies in Ponyville for the fact that Trixie became something of a laughingstock, because she lied big. And when you lie big and the lie is discovered, you lose big. So it really isn't any pony's fault other than Trixie's that she wound up becoming a laughingstock.
Like I mentioned earlier, that's why I was referencing that I truly thought she kind of brought it on herself. Like you mentioned, she told a big lie, and of course, it came back to bite her.
Well, and in this episode, she kind of puts it in the light as if Twilight was attempting to show off by defeating the Ursa Minor, whereas Twilight was just saving the citizens of Ponyville because this Ursa Minor was on a crazed baby rampage, and Trixie couldn't do squat to it. So
that's why I was referencing that in her mind, I thought that it was a little exaggerated that she was humiliated in such a way.
I agree that Twilight isn't the source of what happened to her. It might have been sort of the primer for what set everything off. Granted, one isn't always rational when one is seeking revenge, but I mean, what Trixie was a victim of, not of Twilight's actions or anything. In fact, Twilight at the end of Ghostbusters is, Rainbow Dash is like, oh, should we go after her? And Twilight says, no, let her go. Maybe she'll learn her lesson. Obviously, she didn't. Is that Trixie was a victim of vigilante justice, pretty much. I mean, because it's a single incident that people latch onto and blow out of proportion. Really, Trixie's boasting, I don't think is not a catalyst for something that should destroy their life, which it has, and I think that's why I like it's not so much the repercussions of what Twilight's actions were, but of it, could have been Ponyville in general. We don't really know the story after she leaves, except for what she says, and it's that you don't have to have like this evil, magical, mystical villain. Which I mean, they do a lot. It's nice when they do realistic villains, and in this case, Trixie was like the Flim Flam brothers. I mean, she wasn't that much of a threat to them, but she became one because that's what they turned her into.
Well, they didn't turn her into that. The public turned her into that.
That's who I mean.
But like I said before, the public may have turned her into that, but she's a showmare. You see, you don't go on national television and tell a big, huge lie and then expect when that lie is discovered to not have people point and laugh at you. It's ruined tons of careers of celebrities the world over in a modern sense. So all that essentially happened is that word spread because Twilight Sparkle, the apprentice of Princess Celestia, defeats this Ursa Minor. Word spreads that Trixie, this showmare who was boasting about having gone toe-to-toe with an Ursa Major and won, was completely unable to do anything. Trixie kind of relied on her boasts to kind of bolster her own confidence and basically get people to look up at her with respect. But when people recognize her...
It is even bolstering her audience for her magical show, too.
Yeah, exactly. So when you rely on the same lie and people can point out, well, you're a liar, we know the truth, we know how pathetic you are, that is not the public's fault. That is not Twilight's fault. It's not anybody's fault other than Trixie's, because she lied big. She took a big risk by saying something as ridiculous as I went toe-to-toe with an Ursa Major and won. And hey, you know what? When you take a big risk and you go all in,
yep.
There's a chance that you can lose everything. And she did. And there's nobody that can be blamed.
She made her own bed.
There's nobody that can be blamed but herself. She made her own bed. Now she has to sleep in it.
Yep, exactly. I was just going to say that. She made her own bed, and now she has to sleep in it.
I can't really argue with you guys on too much there. They're valid points, but I still feel that there is perhaps a disproportionality between...
You're a Trixie lover, aren't you? Trying to demonize the others to make Trixie look like she's just a poor widow, innocent, injured soul.
Well, he's playing devil's advocate, and I can see where he's coming from.
I root for the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I understand completely. So, moving on, as we've spent a good 10 minutes just talking about this. They have their duel, and of course, with the help of the amulet, Trixie's power is maximum, so she wins. After winning, she banishes Twilight from Ponyville and erects a...
That dome kind of bothered me because as soon as the dome goes down, they're like, Twilight, no, what do we do? And they got their, the hands pressed up against, or hooves pressed up against the dome. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, dig, Twilight, dig under the dome. Spike digs for gems. Just make Spike dig under the
You are ponies, diggy diggy hole.
She lifts it up at some point.
So they don't bother digging. Despite the fact that it's just a dome, like it's not any kind of like spherical magical barrier.
Exactly.
What could they really do other than comfort Twilight? They can't really do anything about Trixie other than, well, they could face her together, but none of them really could help Twilight in the situation.
Well, they also kind of consider themselves as stuck in Ponyville thanks to the dome because they can't escape either. So it's like, if they were really serious about escaping, they could have considered maybe digging a hole and doing like a literal underground railroad sort of thing. Get away from Trixie by digging a hole underneath the barrier.
And they might have needed a two-part episode for that.
Yeah, I don't think they just had enough time. Actually, thinking about it, this is one of the episodes at the start of this season that actually hasn't had a musical number in it.
Yep, so far this is the only episode so far with no musical number for season 3.
Yeah, I think they just simply did not have enough time to tell the story like it is and include a musical number in there. I mean, they could have. There were a few points where they had every opportunity to do so, but to keep the story moving and to be able to, tell the full story in one episode, it had to be cut. I mean, imagine what could or would have been cut to be able to fit in a musical number.
I completely agree. When I was before the episode, I'm thinking, okay, Trixie's back. They have to do a musical number for her. It really would fit the character. She's very bombastic. She's very showy, and frankly, if any of the villains are going to have a song, it makes sense that it would be her. And, they haven't had too many of those. Discord never had one. I mean, what we had from the wedding episode with Chrysalis, we had the This Day aria.
This Day aria.
Exactly.
In all honesty, This Day aria, Chrysalis being voiced by the same voice actress as Trixie, honestly, at the point of which she has essentially completed her vengeance against Twilight Sparkle and acquired Ponyville as sort of de facto fascist dictator, that was honestly kind of a call for a sort of This Day aria song sort of setup. Actually, it would have been the perfect setup for a "I Have Won the Day" song from Trixie.
Yeah, especially with the defeat of Twilight, the way she kind of considers her ultimate rival, that would have been perfect. But again, just not quite enough time to work that in, I suppose.
That, and in the episode, she's never really succeeded. She's never done. And again, like, as far as revenge goes, it's not necessarily a game you can always win. She got rid of Twilight. Twilight kind of bested her before, so, I mean, she's safe now, but she's not happy. She's not going to be happy. And again, as far as the MacGuffin necklace goes, it's because, it's corrupting her.
Yeah, the flash of her red eyes, just that little flash.
The other thing with the corruption is that they kind of show her getting more like cruel and sort of like weird. Like in Snips and Snails, they kind of comment that she's getting weirder every day, and I wish I liked her better when she was just a fraud. As far as the corruption goes, the corruption really didn't seem all that extravagant. Like, yeah, she was kind of being cruel and mean, whereas before she was just sort of bombastic, arrogant, and not humble in the slightest. But she still did kind of abuse the adoration she got from Snips and Snails in her first appearance. And I think that this might have been better as a sort of two-parter where the stakes had been higher, because whenever you're dealing with like dark artifacts that corrupt, that kind of sort of serious issue really seems like something more appropriate for a longer episode, especially if it's like this amulet is something that powerful. You'd think that the princesses and other people in any sort of position of power or importance in Equestria would like be interested in making sure that these don't fall into the wrong hands. And heck, if you could imagine a villain getting their hands on something like the Alicorn Amulet, just imagine if Chrysalis had gotten her hands on the Alicorn Amulet and added to her already potent powers back in the wedding two-parter. Or if Nightmare Moon had gone, rather than going straight to Ponyville to disrupt the Summer Sun celebration, if she had gone to whatever city this amulet happened to be and grabbed that in order to boost her own evil powers so that she could go toe-to-toe with everybody. It's kind of a big deal that this big old evil MacGuffin exists.
Like I mentioned, the powers of a alicorn condensed into an amulet.
Yeah.
Like I agree that as far as the necklace goes, you don't really see too much of the effects, but it was a necessary evil for this episode, and I think that it just kind of to squeak through the plot. There's no way that Trixie could go toe to toe with Twilight and her magic. I mean, that's kind of the point of what Hurricane Fluttershy was about. There's no way that Trixie was ever going to get to the skill level that Twilight was, especially since Twilight is constantly working on her magic herself, and it's just enough to get the plot going, but it should be about Trixie. It's her episode, and it shouldn't be about the means of how Trixie acquired her power. It should be about Trixie's motives and her character, and I think that it works out well. It's a necessary evil, but it's a decent compromise as well.
I can see that to a degree, I suppose. But also forgot to mention during the duel when the cart is getting thrown around and stuff. Nice little Wilhelm scream.
That's a nice little touch there, because there's you've got the Looney Tunes
classic.
Well, it is a classic, and I know that it's maybe fallen out of favor a bit as far as being put in movies because it distracts people, but the younger audience, they're not going to get that. I mean, the Looney Tunes moments, things like that are great because it works for the older audience from a nostalgic factor, and for the younger audience because, hey, Looney Tunes is great, that type of humor. And it's clearly something that's thrown in there for the parents or for the older audience, and it doesn't really distract from the plot. It's not like putting in pop culture references that only adults are going to get.
It's just a nice little sprinkling, So, not having access to any means of communication with the princess, since Spike is stuck in Ponyville, Twilight goes to find the only other pony with in-depth knowledge of magic that she knows, i.e. Zecora. So, meeting up with Zecora, we get lots and lots of dialogue with Zecora, which is very nice. It's been a while since Zecora's had any particularly long cameo appearances in any episode. I think the last time she had a particularly large part in an episode was probably back in the Nightmare Night episode.
Nightmare Night. Before that, it was when she was first introduced.
Yeah, Bridal Gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Zecora really hasn't had a whole lot of big parts, so I was thankful for that. And we actually see that Zecora does have her own special magics, and Twilight is apparently a lot more accepting of them than she was in Bridal Gossip. So we do get to see a little bit of this sort of ritual tribal magic that Zecora has, and I'm curious just how many zebras have this sort of power, whether it's conventional in their culture or whether it's limited to like shaman characters.
I love how they actually made... as soon as I saw this scene appear on the screen with Zecora sitting off to the side and Twilight in the middle of a lake with 3 floating globules of water surrounding her, instantly got a Star Wars reference out of that.
Oh yeah, everyone was like, oh my god, Yoda.
Yeah, very, very, very Yoda-esque.
We hadn't really focused too much on the animation again, and I know it's been said before in season 3 that, everything has kind of been stepped up a notch, but I went back to the Bridal Gossip episode just because I'm like, I really want to see how much it's changed, and it is... I was just floored by the look that they'd given the Everfree Force, like when Twilight's doing the whole training thing, or the working on her magic. Then everything, background, foreground, it's a lot more vivid than they've had before, and it's one of those things that you don't really notice it maybe at the time, but it makes watching these new episodes such a treat.
It stands out. Definitely stands out in repeat viewings as well. Just how much more smooth and how much more detailed the animation has gotten in the sort of fine little bits, especially as Crescendo mentioned in our episode review for Too Many Pinkie Pies, that the animation on the magic spells and stuff like that especially has gotten really, really nice to look at. Really, really pretty stuff.
Also on the Zecora thing, I kind of find it a little ironic that in Bridal Gossip, the main 6, they were like, oh my god, she's a witch, she's casting spells on us. And in this episode, she's casting spells. Like, it's not...
Well, she does have her own she does have her own sort of shamanistic magics about her. She's not like evil like they like they were saying.
Well, yeah, but it's not just like herbal remedies or things like that. There's like, oh my goodness, she's a witch, and yeah, she's kind of a witch.
They came to an accurate conclusion from the wrong reasons.
Yes.
They came to an accurate conclusion that she had magical powers and was capable of casting spells at people, but for the wrong reasons and false belief that they had been cursed by her. With Twilight learning the intricacies of her magic from Zecora, meanwhile Trixie is causing the ponies in Ponyville under her rule to suffer as the amulet continues to corrupt her. And the main 6 plot to get Fluttershy out of the village with a message to Twilight about Trixie's weakness, being that the amulet, while it corrupts her and gives her power, it cannot be removed by anyone except her.
I love how we get a classic Fluttershy when they are opening the book and they are trying to dig through Twilight's library to find something, and Fluttershy the entire time is in the background, said, "Hey, guys?
I found something, guys. Can you listen to me for like 2 seconds?"
Spike's just like, grab, yoink, "Hey guys, look what I found." And everyone rushes over, and then Fluttershy is volunteered.
Twilight has trained an apprentice who is ready to take credit from the wallflower hanging in the background. Fluttershy, why you no get credit?
It was a little refreshing seeing the main 6 without Twilight, and not just the main 6 without Twilight, but actually holding their own and kind of saving the day almost as it were.
Yeah, trying to work together and figure it out, even with Twilight not being there to help guide the team, they're still able to come up with a plan and being able to execute a way to get information to Twilight.
Yep. So we basically get a little bit of planning session with Trixie's dome covering the village. They can't get out unless they find a way to trick her into lifting the dome temporarily. So they decide to hatch a plan to get Fluttershy out into the Everfree Forest, since she knows the forest best, so that she can get their message to Twilight. The plan is... The plan is to dress up Fluttershy, hide her in a log, and have the beavers, who make a big fuss about not being able to get their log out of Ponyville, to basically smuggle her out of the village.
Which works really well.
Cue Fluttershy as a tree references.
Cue Fluttershy as a tree references. Also, I gotta wonder, is Rarity just really, really, really exhausted? Because this is probably one of her worst outfits that she has ever produced.
Well, to her credit, this outfit was a little destroyed to begin with, and it's kind of on the fly, just defending Rarity a little bit here. Is Fluttershy straight out says, "Oh, no, Rarity's disguise for me is ruined," and tries to jump back in the log, and her woodland friends drag her out and drag her into the forest.
I don't exactly know what kind of she was getting at with the bunny ears on the outfit. That really didn't make a lot of sense. But, I thought it was very Rarity. It was kind of a cheek special forces thing going on.
I think that she was kind of tired, mostly. I think that was kind of what I was getting this vibe of, is that she'd been spending so much time being forced to make those banners for Trixie that she was kind of all tuckered out from sewing, and so
Well, you saw she actually injured her hoof at one point as well, yeah.
Hurt her hoof, yeah.
That makes no sense at all. It's a needle. I mean, horses have nails hammered into their hooves, and they're fine with it.
This is ponies. They aren't made of the same horsey stuff. They're made of marshmallow.
Especially Rarity.
Don't you dare mock Rarity.
And we could argue that all the good fabric was sequestered, or were used up for Trixie's banners.
Well, all the good fabric was probably used up, and Rarity was probably just flat out exhausted. She looked kind of crazed when she was like, "I've got the perfect idea for a suit, for a sneaking out outfit or whatever." And she's got this crazed look on her face, and then she makes it, and it's like, wow, good job there, Rarity. Looks great.
Anyway, so Fluttershy finally makes it to Zeccora's and informs Twilight of what has been going on, and so they end up hatching a plan.
Which basically results in Zeccora enlightening Twilight that her friendship is her most powerful magic, and that basically amounts to, Twilight's going to have to outwit Trixie rather than overpower her.
Mm-hmm. I love a lot of people were, as soon as she mentioned the, sixth, what was it? I think she mentioned the sixth.
The six. She says the six.
Use the six.
Use the six. Yep, use the six. I know a lot of people were going, they're going to go after the trump card, the elements of harmony. No, I don't know. I mean,
They've done it before.
It might have been powerful enough to remove the corruption from the amulet and kind of like shatter it into a million little pieces or something.
An alternate ending probably could have been that, but
they managed to purify Nightmare Moon back into Luna by shooting her, and I'm sure that Nightmare Moon in the long run would have probably been more powerful than Trixie or any given evil MacGuffin.
It just seems like a cop-out, though. Like I was afraid. As soon as she said that, I'm like, oh no, they're gonna use the elements again. Of course, it always saves the day.
I am so glad that they didn't. I'm glad that M.I. Larson, he creatively wrote this so that they didn't, resort to, hey, let's play the trump card. Same thing with the season 2, the wedding episode, the finale. They tried, but that wasn't going to work. They had to rely on something else to be able to save the day. That's just good writing.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that she was going to outwit them when basically it came down to when they first mentioned that Trixie has to remove the amulet herself. I figured that it was going to come down to her needing to be outwitted into taking it off for some reason. So it didn't surprise me when Twilight challenged Trixie in the following scene under the pretense of having a stronger amulet than the Alicorn amulet.
So you're saying Twilight tricks Trixie?
Trickception.
She's Trixie.
Trix playing tricks on Trixie.
Well, Twilight's ruse works after they have another duel, and Twilight shows off a bunch of quote-unquote powerful magic to do all sorts of aging, de-aging tricks, and even going so far as to turn Applejack into a stallion temporarily.
Oh my.
Of course, we get the reveal later as to how all of this worked.
I know many people I was actually watching the episode with, they were freaking out going, what? how did she learn magic like this?
Fanfic and fan art ahoy, by the way, regarding all of this.
It's nice that the way that Twilight, or maybe fitting, like in the last episode, Sweetie Belle is like, was it Sweetie Belle? It's like, oh, why does life have to be so ironic? And here we have Twilight using sleight of hand or sleight of hoof and stage magic to defeat Trixie,
who's a showmare and a stage magician.
Who is a stage magician, exactly.
Yeah, instead of using a raw power to try and fight Trixie, she actually uses Trixie's own works of illusion to beat her. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, yeah, the smoke and mirror, the twist of utilizing smoke and mirrors against someone whose power and specialization is smoke and mirrors. It's kind of like
ironic, isn't it?
That's a nice little twist. Yeah, well, yeah, it's ironic. It's a nice little bit of irony that Trixie couldn't do anything when the Ursa Minor showed up because her magic was entirely focused around showmanship, prestidigitation, smoke and mirrors, that sort of thing, stage magic. And Twilight's real magic is what did the job. Well, Trixie shows up. She's got evil, real magic now, but it's no match against Twilight's outwitting her with stage magic. Very, very nice bit of writing there.
Yes, kudos again to M.A. Larson for that. That's a testament to very excellent writing.
Yes, and so Twilight's ruse works, and Trixie removes the Alicorn amulet and takes the stronger amulet for herself, but is too pathetic to get the Alicorn amulet back when Rainbow Dash dashes to steal the Alicorn amulet from her. And Trixie's magic is so pathetic without it that she can't even cause pain to another pony. All she can do is...
It's time for tickles.
Tickle. All she can do is lightly tickle them. The reveal that the amulet that Twilight got from quote-unquote beyond the Everfree forest was really just one of Zecora's doorstops. The entirety of the duel is over. Trixie has been freed of the influence of the amulet, though she doesn't really seem all that different for it. And
at the moment, I think maybe it's just the effects starting to wear off of her power, because it gradually gets worse and worse with like Snips and Snails rather. They mentioned that she's getting a little crazier. She doesn't trust wheels, for instance. And then after the amulet's removed, it seems like she's starting to come down from that power craze.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I reason with it in my mind, anyway.
We get to the ending scene. Twilight is showcasing the magical display with the synchronized aerial acrobatics of the enchanted forest critters, all the while Fluttershy is biting her hooves the entire time, and shows it off to the delegates of Saddle Arabia, who are actually saddled and bridled horses. Go figure.
A little bit of a different look for them. I think it's neat to see kind of a different style jump in the show as well.
I think I actually think it's a nice little reference, and I could be wrong here, but I think that it was partially done to give them the look of these sort of regal, these regal horses is sort of a reference to the prominence of horse breeding for big races.
Oh, absolutely.
In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia especially, they take horse breeding and horse racing very, very seriously, and it's a really big thing. And they've got some of the finest purebred horses in the entire world. So having the delegates from Saddle Arabia be these regal horses rather than like ponies was a nice little twist.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice little reference there.
And also notice that during the performance, Trixie adds a little bit of fireworks. And with this comes an apology.
Although it's sort of it's sort of one of those apologies where you can feel that she's kind of really, really trying to play up the pity card. She gives the pouty face, and then after she gets the apology, she's back to being her arrogant and not so humble self, and does her little flourish, smoke, and runs off.
Old habits die hard. Old habits do indeed die hard.
I do love how she trips and falls on her face as she's running off, though.
It's so cute.
Well, and it's a nice... Not nice, maybe it's an appropriate send-off, because just like in the first one where, she's just running away, is an individual incident doesn't necessarily change a person, even like a larger one. Trixie getting rid of habits like that's probably not going to happen. It's a large part of who she is, but her leave isn't glorious because she's not glorious. It's an illusion that she holds. She's got this schism between her self-image.
She's very deluded.
Exactly. But, she's much the same person, but hopefully, with kind of the apology and everything else, she's on a better road. I mean, that's what Twilight kind of said at the end of Ghostbusters.
Perhaps. You never know, because they took the amulet. They're going to go and hide it, but you never know if Trixie's really going to use this opportunity to better herself. And in the long run, even though she apologized to Twilight Sparkle, if she got that mad about the indirect shame that Twilight Sparkle's putting down of the Ursa Minor caused back in Ghostbusters, then how much more mad is she going to get in the future when she continues to try her showmare act, and people continue to bring up the fact that she lost in a duel to Twilight Sparkle by being outwitted into taking a fake powerful amulet?
It all depends on how she takes it. She takes it in strides and says, you know what, Twilight she uses a different kind of magic, whereas, I bring a show to an audience.
Do you really think Trixie's learned that well of a lesson? Do you really think Trixie's learned that much?
I don't know. I can't say for sure. Maybe she hasn't, but I thought it was really unlike the Trixie we saw in Ghostbusters, where she actually apologized. And even though there was a little bit of arrogance there, it was a glimmer of a different side of Trixie that we hadn't really seen before.
And then, the very, very end, when everything closes to black, we get Pinkie Pie stepping out to give us a nice little meta shot as she complains wordlessly about the fact that her mouth was never returned to her. And we have Twilight step out to magically give her back her mouth. She takes a big old breath to say something, and cut to credits.
Yeah, Twilight denies her the breaking of the fourth wall. Like, oh, I see what you're doing there, Pinkie. Here, let me help you. Cut to credit.
Oh, I do have to mention, by the way, though, also, is when Twilight uses her magic to put the instruments on Pinkie Pie, and Pinkie Pie plays 10 instruments at once, including a horn, which those instruments are, and you can tell that the horn is being played because it's part of the musical ditty. How is Pinkie Pie playing that horn without the use of a mouth?
Just Pinkie Pie. She's playing it with her eyes. There you go.
Oh, come on, guys. It's just Pinkie Pie.
Yeah, it's just Pinkie Pie. She had 10 instruments at once. That's just what she does for her day job.
Alrighty, so that brings us to the end of this episode review. So let's go ahead and give our summaries. Let's go ahead and start with our newest co-host, Ramble. What was your overall grade of the episode on a scale of 1 to 5?
I really don't want to come out too strong here, but honestly, this is the episode that I've been waiting for in more ways than one. Not just because it's a Trixie episode. I mean, it's wonderful to see her back, really the first fleshed out villain of the series. But I mean, from the pacing through the animation, it's everything. It's chock full from the opening to the end with, drama, conflict, humor for all the viewers. And I honestly think that this episode is setting the benchmark by which the rest of the season 3 is going to be judged. I have to give it a 5 out of 5.
Okay, Dave, how about yourself?
I have to say, I greatly enjoyed this episode. I honestly, I'm not a huge Trixie fan, so I was pleasantly surprised to see the little extra character that was brought out for Trixie in this episode. The episode was just well put together, well written, well executed. It was very well animated. I didn't really have any negative things to say about this episode at all. A solid 5 out of 5 for me. Just that I absolutely enjoyed it from start to finish.
Okay, I would probably not give it a perfect score. I would give it a 4.5 probably. This is an episode I would definitely rewatch. It's an episode I enjoyed thoroughly. It's an episode with plenty of little references and little things to make things enjoyable. I felt that it wasn't quite perfect because at some points it felt a bit like it was pandering to the older audience, the bronies who really, really like Trixie and have been clamoring for Trixie to make some kind of return. Some of the points made throughout the episode, some of the little plot developments and plot devices seemed a little bit too easy. Like how she goes about acquiring the amulet, and so a couple of things like that just were sort of especially since the entire the setup, like her knowing who Twilight Sparkle even was to begin with, when she never actually got introduced or knew who Twilight Sparkle was. Come into Ghostbusters, Twilight pretty much just steps up and takes charge, and she never really gets any kind of formal introduction. But aside from those minor nitpicks, the episode was really, 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 really fun. And I think that that's probably what's most important in this case, is that the episode was fun. And M.A. Larson did stuff with the writing that kind of took it in different directions. I think that if it was going to be a bit more of a serious episode rather than the sort of almost silly gag-filled episode that it probably would have done well as a two-parter and had a bit more of a serious plot point, maybe something with the elements of harmony or something like that. But as far as everything goes, I think that it was a really good episode, really fun, not perfect, couple little minor flaws, but I definitely watch it again, and I would definitely recommend it because it's got all of those various different qualities that people in the fandom can enjoy. So 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Another question that just came to mind, has this made you a Trixie fan?
Probably not. I am going to say that I really, 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 really hope this doesn't encourage more Twilight Trixie fanfic, because that's one ship that I will never approve of.
Your hope is misplaced.
Well, I already know that it's a foregone conclusion that I am never going to see Twixie die.
It's happening right now as you're talking.
As I speak.
Fanfics.
I can hear them being written.
Oh, and music is being composed.
Yeah.
Duel, Rainbow Dash. I mean, there was so much for the community to work with here. I mean, there's so many references, little gags.
Oh, I already know there's going to be fanfics there's already going to be fanfics with the Dual Rainbow Dash, the Applejack being turned into a stallion. I can already see a slew of stuff being made for that, especially since they actually had Ashley Ball voice the "yep" that Applejack said, or rather Applejack, quote unquote, being Big Macintosh. But
well, and I think one of the big draws for a lot of the material that came out is because the character, she wasn't just a two-dimensional antagonist, she was a fleshed out character, and at the end of Ghostbusters you see kind of her facade crack, and she refers to herself in the first person. And in this same thing here, we've got a realistic plot that flows organically from the characters and conflicts that have already been established, and I think it gives people so much to draw on, and that's one of the reasons that this community creates all the content that they do.
I think that I would like to see the fandom create some interesting little stuff that doesn't have to do with shipping. I'd like to see the fandom create some stuff around this episode, like revolving around maybe like the amulet and how it came into being. Some of the stuff like what other magical artifacts might exist in Equestria that rival said amulet in power, other than like maybe the elements of harmony. Where this sort of thing comes from.
Yeah, it was imply that amulet was one of
many different magical artifacts.
Yeah, one of the many magical artifacts.
So it would be nice to see some more stuff on that. I always like stuff from the fandom and the community that develops more on the world as a whole and tries to expand upon like the mythos and takes some more like serious epic turns. Very rarely do I actually read books that focus on shipping, and I have, and I've actually really liked a few of them. But I'd like to see some more fan created material that expands upon these sorts of things, like the Alicorn amulet and stuff like that. But that just about does it for this episode review. You've heard our opinions on it. Ramble gives it 5 out of 5. Dave gives it 5 out of 5. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, all that other stuff, you can always contact us. Our information is on the staff page at everfree.net, or you can just go ahead and shoot an email to me at any given point in time at brushandbones.everfree@gmail.com. I am, of course, the episode lead, so anything pertaining to the episode reviews you can ask me. And just to bring up a little bit that was made and complained about here and there regarding our last episode review, remember that these reviews are done for the purpose of entertainment. Oftentimes we will accentuate the negative and do so for the sake of entertainment and humor, and more often than not, these episodes draw long because these are not intended to be summaries. These are not intended to be short reviews. These are intended to be discussions by multiple people that go into in-depth, detailed, critical analysis of all the little bits and pieces of the episode that we can think of. Now, if you don't like that sort of thing, you don't like listening to an hour-long audio log of people rambling and prattling on about this, that, or the other to each other, then fine, that's not for you. But it is all right to go ahead and have our opinions be what they are, and it is all right to go ahead and hold these discussions. If you prefer to go listen to a short summary, go check out Paleo. He's got some great stuff. He does great reviews. Nice, short, sweet. Probably none of them are even in the double digits in length. Give him some viewership. If you like listening to us while you do your stuff, more power to you. But please just respect the fact that our opinions are our own. They do not necessarily reflect that of Everfree Network as a whole or other people in the staff. They're just opinions, and everybody has one, and everyone has the right to their own. But anyways, that's going to be it for us. This is Brush and Bones signing off.
I'm Cowboy Dave.
And this is Ramble.
And we will see you next time here at Everfree Radio Presents on Everfree Network. Bye-bye.